Hi readers, Chris here. Welcome to my channel where I review books, mostly fantasy and YA, but occasionally some other things as well. If you are following me on Instagram, you will know that this has been a crazy week, including a bit of a medical emergency the other day. One of our ferrets, Snowball, we noticed that her cheek was getting like a little puffy, and then all of a sudden it turned like really red. So we had to get her into the vet. That's why this video is delayed. She's on medication now and she's doing better. Hopefully that will continue. But what I am here to do today, better late than never, is talk about my most anticipated book releases for next month, May 2022. As always, these are not all the books that are coming out next month. They're just some of the ones that I'm most interested in. And if you've been around a while, you might be surprised. I feel like I've got a really good wide selection of books this month, and I think I've found like something for everyone. So I am really excited to talk about it. So let's jump in. These are not in any sort of order other than by publication date. So my number one pick for May is going to be Book of Night by Holly Black. And if you recognize the name Holly Black, she is a super popular YA fantasy author. She's written The Cruel Prince, a bunch of other books. I know a few of you I've seen talk about her before, so you should be familiar with her. But this is her newest story, and according to Amazon, this book features a young girl named Charlie Hall. Charlie has never found a lock she couldn't pick, a book she couldn't steal, or a bad decision she wouldn't make. She spent half her life working for glomists, magicians who manipulate shadows to peer into locked rooms, strangle people in their beds, or worse. Glomists guard their secrets greedily, creating an underground economy of grimoires. And to rob their fellow magicians, they need Charlie Hall. Now, she's trying to distance herself from her past mistakes, but getting out isn't easy. Bartending at a dive, she's still entirely too close to the corrupt underbelly of the Berkshires. Not to mention that her sister Posey is desperate for magic, and that Charlie's shadowless and possibly soulless boyfriend has been hiding things from her. When a terrible figure from her past returns, Charlie descends into a maelstrom of murder and lies. Determined to survive, she's up against a cast of doppelgangers, mercurial billionaires, glomists, and the people she loves best in the world, all trying to steal a secret that will give them vast and terrible power. I have not read any of Holly Black's books yet, but I do have a copy of The Cruel Prince that I'm just waiting for the right time to read. But this book sounds really cool. Like, I really love when fantasy, especially like YA fantasy, goes a bit more dark. So that the whole murder and lies really draws me to this story. So if you are drawn to this story, Book of Night will be available on May 3rd. Book number 2 on my list is going to be Braverly by Maggie Stiefvater, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing right. I absolutely love Maggie Stiefvater. Ever since I read her Shiver trilogy way back in the day, I've really loved her. I've read a ton of her books. I haven't read the Raven Boys series. I read the first one and then didn't have the rest of the books, so I didn't continue with it. Blah, 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 blah. I really love her. And if you can't tell from the cover, obviously this is a take on the Disney movie Brave. So according to Amazon, this book is described as, what if you had 1 year to save everything you loved? One princess, Merida of Dunbrock, needs a change. She loves her family, jovial King Fergus, proper Queen Eleanor, and the mischievous triplets, and her peaceful kingdom. But she's frustrated by its sluggishness. Each day the same. Merida longs for adventure, purpose, challenge, and even, someday, love. Two gods, but the fiery princess never expects her disquiet to manifest by the way of Faradak, an uncanny supernatural being tasked with rooting out rot and stagnation, who appears in Dunbrook on Christmas Eve with the intent to demolish the realm and everyone within. Only the intervention of Cailleach, an ancient entity of creation, gives Merida a shred of hope. Convince her family to change within the year or suffer the eternal consequences. 3 voyages. Under the watchful eyes of the gods, Merida leads a series of epic journeys to kingdoms near and far in an attempt to inspire revolution within her family. But in all her efforts to save those who she loves from ruin, has Merida lost sight of the clan member grown most stagnant of all? Herself? 4 seasons to save Dunbrook or see it destroyed forever. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Brave is not like my favorite Disney movies. I only saw it once a long time ago, but I'm obviously familiar with what the story is about. So I think that this sounds really cool, and I have loved everything I've ever read by Maggie Stiefvater, so I'm hoping I'll love this one as well whenever I get around to reading it. So if it sounds like something you would love, Braverly will be available on May 3rd. My third pick for May is going to be When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I love when genres clash. So books that are like fantasy plus horror or fantasy plus historical fiction. And I feel like this is an example of that. So this is described as a rocking feminist tale set in 1950s America where thousands of women spontaneously transformed into dragons, exploding notions of a woman's place in the world and expanding minds about accepting others for who they really are. Alex Green is a young girl in a world much like ours, except for its most seminal event, the mass dragoning of 1955, where hundreds and thousands of ordinary wives and mothers sprouted wings, scales, and talons and left a trail of fiery destruction in their path and took to the skies. Was it their choice? What will become of those left behind? Why did Alex's beloved Aunt Marla transform, but her mother did not? Alex doesn't know. It's taboo to speak of. I'm just going to pause for a minute because there is something about the term mass dragoning that I find both hilarious and super cool at the same time. So anyway, continuing here. Forced into silence, Alex nevertheless must face the consequences of this astonishing event. A mother more protective than ever, an absentee father, the upsetting instance that her aunt never even existed, and watching her beloved cousin, B, become dangerously obsessed with the forbidden. In this timely and speculative novel, award-winning author Kelly Barnhill boldly explores rage and memory and the tyranny of forced limitations. When Women Were Dragons exposes a world that wants to keep women small, their lives and their prospects, and examines what will happen when they rise en masse and take up the space they deserve. Yes, obviously, I think this sounds super, super cool. And it reminds me a little bit of a book I read a few years ago called The Power, which was basically a story of women all of a sudden had this like electrical power, and some used it for good, but most used it for not so good reasons. So very curious to see if this book has like a similar take on women having power. If you are interested, When Women Were Dragons will be available on May 3rd. Book number 4 is going to be Siren Queen by Nahi Vo, and I'm sure I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but sorry. So this is an author I have never heard of before, but wow, does this book sound amazing. No maids, no funny talking, no fainting flowers. Lily Wu is beautiful, talented, and desperate to be a star. Coming of age in pre-code Hollywood, she knows how dangerous the movie business is and how limited the roles are for a Chinese-American girl from Hungarian Hill. But she doesn't care. She'd rather play a monster than a maid. But in Lily's world, the worst monsters in Hollywood are not the ones on the screen. The studios want to own everything, from her face to her name to who she loves, and they run on a system of bargains made in blood and ancient magic powered by the endless sacrifice of unlucky starlets like her. For those who do survive to earn their fame, success comes with a steep price. Lily is willing to do whatever it takes, even if that means becoming the monster herself. Siren Queen offers up an enthralling exploration of an outsider achieving stardom on her own terms, in a fantastical Hollywood where the monsters are real and the magic of the silver screen illuminates every page. I mean, wow. Can you not, wow. I just love this explanation. I am fascinated by stories about Hollywood and the entertainment business, but I mean the underside, the dark stuff, because we all know that there is an underside to entertainment. I think of the Harvey Weinstein scandal that happened a few years back. So I think this book sounds both super amazing, timely, and yeah, just super cool. I know I said this about a few books last month, but I can already see the fact that it's set in Hollywood. I can already see this book being made into a movie. I can already see it in my head. So if you are interested in Siren Queen, it will be available on May 10th. Book number 5 is going to be This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. Not an author that I'm personally familiar with, but I do know that she has written other books. So this one apparently has been named the most anticipated book of 2022 by a whole bunch of places that I'm not going to list, but this book asks the question, what would you do if you could take a vacation to your past? On the eve of her 40th birthday, Alice's life isn't terrible. She likes her job, even if it isn't exactly the one she expected. She's happy with her apartment, her romantic status, her independence. She adores her lifelong best friend. But her father is ailing, and it starts to feel to her as if something is missing. When she wakes up the next morning, she finds herself back in 1996, reliving her 16th birthday. But it isn't just her adolescent body that shocks her, or seeing her high school crush. It's her dad, the vital, charming, 40-something version of her father with whom she is reunited. Now, armed with a new perspective on her own life and his, some past events take on new meaning. Is there anything that she would change if she could? This sounds like such a sweet story. I can already tell from the way it's explained that this woman, Alice, has a very special relationship with her father. And I think that is probably going to be the emotional crux of the story, the heart of the story. And I think it sounds both super, super sweet as far as kind of a family drama goes. But then we've also got time travel, which is, a bit of sci-fi fantasy thrown in. So like I said before, the fact that it's a mix of a couple different things sounds really fun, really sweet. Probably might be a bit heartbreak in there. We'll see. If you want to find out more about This Time Tomorrow, it'll be available on May 17th. For book number 6, I have something you might be surprised I put on here, and that is Hide by Kiersten White. And if the cover of this book doesn't suggest what it's about, listen to this and tell me that this does not sound like a super fun story. The challenge. Spend a week hiding in an abandoned amusement park and don't get caught. The prize. Enough money to change everything. Even though everyone is desperate to win, to seize the dream, future, or escape a haunting past, Mac is sure she can beat her competitors. All she has to do is hide, and she's an expert at that. It's the reason that she's alive and her family isn't. But as the people around her begin to disappear, one by one, Mac realizes that this competition is even more sinister than she imagined, and that together might be the only way to survive. 14 competitors, 7 days, everywhere to hide, but nowhere to run. Come out, wherever you are. Dun, dun, dun. This book sounds like a little bit of Hunger Games mixed in with a little bit of like Stephen King with a little bit of like it's just a little bit of everything going on. Like obviously we've got some sort of game going on here. Almost makes me feel like Squid Games a little bit if you saw that recently on Netflix. Like any sort of game where there's like evil undertones, I am just super into, super fascinated. So I think that Hyde sounds like an amazing book, probably will make an amazing movie someday. So if it sounds amazing to you, Hyde will be available on May 24th. Book number 7 is another book that I'm excited to talk about, and that is going to be City of Orange by David Yoon. I feel like I don't read enough science fiction, and I really want to change that, so I'm hoping that this book will be a good read. So, a man wakes up in an unknown landscape, injured and alone. He used to live in a place called California, but how did he wind up here with his head wound and a bottle of pills in his pocket? He navigates his surroundings, one rough shape at a time. Here lies a pipe, there a reed that could be carved into a weapon, beyond a city he once lived in. He could swear his daughter's name began with J, but what was it exactly? Then he encounters an old man, a crow, and a boy, and realizes that nothing is what he thought it was. Neither the past nor the present. He can't even recall the features of his own face and wonders, who am I? Harrowing and haunting, but also humorous in the face of the unfathomable, David Yoon's City of Orange is a novel about reassembling the things that make us who we are and finding the way home again. Based on that description, I have absolutely no idea what is going on in this book. Have no idea if it's science fiction, which I'm hoping it is, if it's just some sort of a psychological thriller. I have no idea. And I kind of like that. Like, I like sometimes going into books where I really don't know what to expect. I feel like sometimes when I have too high expectations, I get disappointed. And yeah, so if you are interested in City of Orange, it will be available on May 24th. Number 8, no surprise, we've got a YA fantasy here that sounds super, super cool by a new author to me, Isabel Ibanez. And this is called Together We Burn. Now listen to this brief description here and tell me that already this sounds amazing. We Burn is a lush, enchanting, standalone fantasy inspired by medieval Spain, filled with romance, adventure, and just the right amount of danger. I have yet to read any fantasies inspired by Spain, especially medieval Spain, so this sounds absolutely, absolutely amazing. An ancient city plagued by dragons. 18-year-old Zarella is a talented flamenco dancer and daughter of the most famous dragondor in Hispalia. People come from miles to see him fight in their arena, which will one day be hers. But disaster strikes during one celebratory show, and in the carnage, Zarella's life changes in an instant. A flamenco dancer who must become a dragon hunter to save her family legacy. When the Dragon Guild, trying to wrest control of her inheritance from her, Zarella has no choice but to train to become a Dragondor. But when the most talented dragon hunter left in the land, the infuriatingly handsome Arturo Diaz de Montserrat, withholds his help, Zarella cannot take no for an answer, for without him, her world will burn. I love everything that's going on here. I love the medieval Spanish influences. I love the idea of a dragondor that's basically a mastador, but with dragons instead of like bulls. I think that is so cool. Such a cool idea. Such a clever twist on, popular Spanish mythology. I don't know. This book just sounds super cool. So if it sounds super cool to you, Together We Burn will be available on May 31st. Now, the last two books on my list here may surprise you because I don't read a lot of romance. I try to include one, but I have two picked out here. And not only two that I'm just going to talk about, but these are two books that literally, the day they come out, I will actually go to the store and buy these books. I will 100% be reading these books and picking them out when they come up. And the first one is going to be Rivals, which is the third and I hope final, but third book in the American Royals series, which I absolutely love. Absolutely love this series. I've reviewed the first two previously if you go back and look at my videos, but this is the third book in the American Royals trilogy. So if you don't know anything about this story, basically it follows the lives of a few young girls. One of them starts out, she is the princess of the United States of America. Her father was the king, not the president, the king. But now, by this third book in the series, she is the queen. So Beatrice is the queen. And for the American royal family, everything is about to change. Relationships will be tested. Princess Samantha is in love with Lord Marshall Davis, but the more serious they get, the more complicated things become. Is Sam destined to repeat her string of broken relationships? And this time, will the broken heart be her own? Strangers will become friends. Beatrice is representing America at the greatest convocation of kings and queens in the world. When she meets a glamorous foreign princess, she gets drawn into the inner circle, but at what cost? And rivals will become allies. Nina and Daphne have spent years competing for Prince Jefferson. Now they have something in common. They both want to take down the manipulative Lady Gabrielle Madison. Can these enemies join forces, or will old rivalries stand in the way? If you can't tell from that description, this series is basically like Bridgerton, but set in like modern day America. So if America had a royal family, this is what it would be like. I have just loved this series so far because I love the characters in it. It's so super cute. It's super funny. And it's just one of those books that you read and it just makes me smile. It just makes me smile. I really love it so much. Really enjoy it. So if you are looking forward to the third book in this trilogy, Rivals will be available on May 31st. Finally, that brings me to book number 10, which, as I said, another romance that I am 100% going to be running out to buy, and that is Tokyo Dreaming by Miku Jean. And this is the sequel to Tokyo Ever After, which I read last year and 100% fell in love with that book. Fell in love. It's like the Princess Diaries, except she's a princess of Japan. There was a ferret in that book in one scene. It was absolutely hilarious. So funny. One of the funniest books I've ever read. And I cannot wait to read this one. Now, I have to say that reading this description, there are some spoilers in here for the first book, Tokyo Ever After. So if you really don't want to know anything about Tokyo Ever After, I would recommend just skipping this one and going to the end of the video. But if you are still here, I will continue with the description of Tokyo Dreaming. When Japanese-American Izumi learned that her father was the Crown Prince of Japan, she became a princess overnight. Now, she's overcome conniving cousins, salacious press, and an imperial scandal to finally find a place she belongs. She has a perfect bodyguard turned boyfriend. Her stinky dog, Tamagotchi, is living with her in Tokyo. Her parents have even rekindled their college romance and are engaged. A royal wedding is on the horizon. Izumi's life is a Tokyo dream come true. Only her parents' engagement hits a brick wall. The Imperial Household Council refuses to approve the marriage, citing concerns about Izumi and her mother's lack of pedigree. On top of it all, her bodyguard turned boyfriend makes a shocking decision about their relationship. At the threat of everything falling apart, Izumi vows to do whatever it takes to help win over the council, which means upping her newly acquired princess game. But at what cost? Azumi will do anything to help her parents achieve their happily ever after, but what if playing the perfect princess means sacrificing her own will? Will she find a way to forge her own path and follow her heart? Someone was bothering me and wanted to be picked up, but I cannot tell you how excited I am for this book. I have high expectations. I really hope that it's as funny as the first one was. So if you are excited for Tokyo Dreaming, it will be available on May 31st. There you have it. Those are the 10 books I am most interested in for May 2022, which I can't believe starts tomorrow. As always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me and my furry friends out. Hope you enjoyed watching. Happy reading. Thank you, Jack.